recording.
Thank you, Moshe David, Rabbi Moshe David, for these words of introduction and for these news that you are conveying us, which are truly a light in the darkness. Very often, it's the news that are not published in the newspapers that are often perhaps the most meaningful ones for us to know. So, talking about the situation, talking about Emunah, talking about faith in the situation, truly this show is going to be mainly just thoughts. Thoughts have come to me, ideas from the Torah, from different places. I don't know if they can give us consolation, but they can maybe give us meaning and understanding. I remember when I was in Kollel studying Torah, few of the people were interesting, perhaps to become rabbis, perhaps to become teachers. And there was an older rabbi who was giving us, talking us about sometimes about the parasha, sometimes about other subjects. Teacher, and he told us that, when he was young, becoming a rabbi, becoming a teacher of Torah, he always knew the big question that everybody's going to try to ask you is, where was God during the Holocaust? But he said, you won't need to worry about that question so much because it's a different generation. Holocaust a long time ago. But unfortunately, in this moment, we have experienced something very big. Hasn't been so many Jews were killed in one day since the Holocaust. And I think a lot of us are asking these questions again, like, why? Why did this have to happen? I don't think I can give answers in this show, but I think I can perhaps help us know at least what we can't say and what is not the right direction to take. So I wanted to first share with you a piece, just pieces that came to my mind, pieces from the Torah that came to my mind just in the days coming after these attacks happened. Now, as you remember, the attacks happened on, this whole thing started on Simchat Torah. And it's a time when Jews are happy and joyful. And of course, as a religious Jew, I also wasn't connected to the internet and I didn't have any knowledge. Slowly, rumors started creeping into the synagogue that maybe something was happening, something terrible, something bigger than before. And I stood up on the night of Simchat Torah in front of the congregation, and I said, whatever there's a time, we had actually read that same morning in Kohelet, in the Ecclesiastes, that there's a time to dance, and there's a time to be sad. Spoke about how it's important to stay happy while the Chag is on, even if afterward, and we'll deal with the sad news afterwards. And then, of course, as well as we could, we tried to give the spirit of Simchat Torah even under these situations. And then later, after the Chag was over, and I heard all the terrible news, it made me think about the part in the Torah. In the book of Vayikra, we talk about the inauguration of the tabernacle, of the Mishkan. And there we have a story of Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu were prophets, they were priests, they were Kohanim, children of Aaron, who were being inaugurated to start the service. It was a very, very happy day, it was an especially happy occasion. This was the day when the Mishkan was ready. God had said, okay, I've completely forgiven the sin of the golden calf. I'm going to bring my Shekhinah to rest upon you. It's like the happiest moment, And in the middle of all that happiness, Nadav and Avihu, these great Kohanim, they made some sort of mistake, And I'm not going to go into it now because it's not our subject. It says in the Torah they brought a strange fire, a fire they shouldn't have brought. Really, we could have a whole shiur just on that, on Nadav and Avihu, and why they were punished in the way they were punished. But that's not our subject today. And Nadav and Avihu, basically, for that sin that they did, fire came to their mouth. They died. They died in the actual tabernacle, in the Mishkan. It says here. But what I'm more interested now is what Hashem said straight after. You can imagine the situation. You have Aaron HaKohen. Today he's becoming the high priest. His 4 sons surrounding him, becoming the new priests of this movable temple. In the midst of all this joy, I'm sorry to tell you, 2 of your sons are dead. So just 2 verses, just to see what happens at that moment. Because it just felt, the connection felt very, it just came to my mind, this story, because it was, this feeling we had, this moment of intense happiness, and then something like this happened. Moses says to Aaron, this is what Hashem said. To those near to me, I show myself holy, and gain glory before all the people. And Aaron was silent. Very interesting words. Very interesting words. It means they who are near to me, through them I show myself holy. Commentaries explain that at a certain level, Nadav and Avihu were really near to God, and they were very great. And you can have a whole talk on what their sin was, but they were very, very great. And that's why they, even though this was a punishment for some sort of sin, but it was all in measure of their greatness. Yeah. If they hadn't been such great men, they wouldn't have been punished in this way. This wouldn't have been seen as a sin. And they are still, even after their death, they're called Ovim, close to God. And then we're told, what is Aaron told to do? Moses says to Aaron, to Elazar, Itamar, don't let your hair grow long. As usually mourners, they don't cut their hair, but to them, they take your haircut normally. Don't tear your clothes. Usually, a mourner tears his clothes. And your brothers, the whole Jewish nation, they should cry for the burning that Hashem has burned. So, there are some very interesting points here. First of all, there's a very strong feeling of you have to be able to separate. There is something terrible going on, Two Kohanim died. At the same time, you are Aaron, you have a job to do. Today you are the Kohen Gadol. Today the Shekhinah has descended on the Jewish people. Today you have to be happy. But eventually, you also don't close down the facts. Something bad has happened. And it says, the whole Jewish nation, they shall cry for this terrible thing. And I think it's a very Jewish concept that everything has its time, everything has its place. On Simchat Torah, we're happy. After the Havdalah, we heard the news, we're sad. There's even a halacha, very interesting halacha. If we're carrying a dead body on the road, take it to the graveyard, and then you see a kala, you see a bride being taken to her wedding place, and they're starting to walk on the road, and they start to approach each other. It's the people carrying the body, carrying the casket. They have to go away. They have to go to the side and let the procession accompanying the bride to go their way. I think it's a very strong, very Jewish concept. It's like, however important it is to respect the dead, and however important it is to show the mourning and the sadness. And there's even laws of how to behave as a mourner and how to cope with sadness. But at the same time, it cannot take away the happiness of life. That's a very, very, very powerful message in these times. Of course, it was related to that specific thing, the day when it started, Simchat Torah. But I think in general, of course, we have had mourning, we've had prayer, we've had all sorts of feelings. But at the same time, it's very important to keep this feeling that the life moves on, the life continues. And I think especially when we're dealing with this type of war, which is not a traditional war, it's a war of terrorism, and it's a war of sending videos, and a war of sending pictures. And a big aim of the enemy is often is more to frighten us, to stop living our lives. So the Jewish message is, that's your priority. The life has to continue. That's one very strong idea, I think, that can help us to put things into context. Another point, yeah, please. And another point.
Of Shmuel, just a reflection on what you're saying. I'm thinking also of how during these times our heart may be at the same time is both whole and broken. And we have, again, because you said you don't maybe get all of the good news, there's so many weddings right now that are happening inside the army bases, where the Kala, just going back to your example, the Kala just shows up at the army base and they do the Khatuna, they do the wedding on the spot, because and we've had and you're hearing it happening all over the place. Everyone is in Miluim, and there were supposed to be Khatunot now after the Chagim, and people are just showing up. So I think it's that's one beautiful thing. And the other is that when we had this miracle in which they managed to bring this soldier out of captivity, so you have a moment in which all of Am Yisrael is rejoicing, and you say, but how can you be rejoicing if you have another 240 people in captivity? And the answer is yes, because we are rejoicing the life at the same time that we are broken and over the loss. And I think it's an amazing thing to be able to hold the two of those side by side.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's one point. I think another point, in this same text, they speak about crying for the burning that Hashem has burned. Now, of course, in this particular story in the Torah, it was Hashem very directly who sent the fire and killed these two Kohanim. But actually, everything that happens in the world is under Hashem's control. Whether it's humans who caused the pain in the wars, whether it's a natural catastrophe, whatever it is, God is in charge. That's the most basic belief in Judaism. And it's always, this is what often creates a lot of discussion, controversy, difficulty, is when we see things that are not good. And at the same time, we have to believe Hashem is in charge. And very often there are two ways people tend to cope. Some people, either they lose their faith, or they say, okay, so it wasn't God, it was a man, it was a natural catastrophe, it was whatever it was. But once you say that, you're not within the realm of Judaism, really, because the most basic thing is that Hashem is in charge, and nobody can hurt you if Hashem really decides to protect you. So that's not really an answer that comes from Jewish faith. Other people, let's say sometimes somebody wants to be very prophetic, very biblical, he'll say, okay, so it was a punishment. They deserved it. They got what they deserved. And they'll bring proof for you, maybe from some prophets or from some text in the Bible. But we see in this text, actually, that that's not the right answer either. Because remember what they're called, these Kohanim. They're called Kovim. They're called people who are close to God. And they were very, very great men. And it's an interesting balance, because we can't judge other people, and we have no idea. We definitely can't judge God, and we have no idea why is he doing what he's doing. But at the same time, we have to accept he is doing it. And this is the difficulty and the challenge that many people found hard after the Holocaust, after other troubles, personal troubles people have gone through. But actually, it's also a very comforting thought, because it means that somebody is in charge, even if we don't always understand why and how. This was just some points that came to my mind when at the beginning of this whole happening. But I think trying to look for an answer is beyond us. It says in our tradition that the first one to ask why bad things happen to good people was Moshe Rabbeinu himself, and he didn't get an answer. So that's just one of the mysteries that Hashem has kept as a secret from us in this world. But one thing that we Jews have always done is, even if we don't know why this happened, we can definitely think of what can we do? What is our step? What do we learn for the future? And it's very important to understand, no way does this mean we're blaming people who have suffered, or we're even blaming ourselves necessarily. But we are trying to improve, and a moment of darkness, a moment of sadness is a motivation, is a reason to create more light. So there are two pieces that in other places in the Torah that I thought would be quite practical, something that can be not just faith. I was told that the series of these classes, the purpose is to talk about Emunah, about faith. And faith is really important, but faith has to lead to action. We talk about two concepts in Jewish tradition, about Emunah, which is faith, talk about bitachon, which is trust. And it's not always easy to make the bridge from the Emunah to the bitachon. Yeah? Very often, a person can have a philosophical belief. Yeah, I believe in God. But to have trust in God means you have a certain feeling I wouldn't say a person feels relaxed, but a person feels comfortable. He knows that there is a plan. He knows somebody is in charge. He knows there's somebody listening to your prayers. That's already a internalized belief, not just something theoretical. So the other piece that I wanted to show, it says in the Torah, this is in the 5th book of the Torah, in the Dvarim, Moses gives lots of speeches there, lots and lots of speeches. And he speaks about what are you going to do when you get to Eretz Israel. He knows he's not going to get there, but he knows the people will. And he tells them what they're going to do. And he speaks a lot about not serving idols and not doing this and not doing that and what you should do and do which mitzvot. And then he says to them, when you get your big houses, then you get your blessings, be careful. Yeah, he says, yeah, you will forget your God. You grow haughty, you forget your God. And then, ואמרת בלבביך, כוחי ועוצם ידי, עשה לי את החיל הזה. And you say to yourself, my own power and the might of my own hand have won this wealth for me. Yeah. And he speaks about the danger to not fall to this pit. What you really should do is, remember Hashem your God. He's the one who gives you strength to have courage, to keep fulfillment of the covenant made as an oath with your fathers, as is still the case. So this idea that persons be very careful not to attribute the success, and here talking about the success of a country, to his own strength, realize that he would not be able to do it without God. And I think this is something that perhaps we can all work on at some level. There is a bit of a certain amount of pride sometimes in Israel or in the Jewish nation as a whole that, the Holocaust happened, we didn't have a way to defend ourselves. But now we have an army, we have a country, we have things which we didn't have then, which is true, absolutely true, and we have to be very grateful for it. But a person has to also realize that he's limited, and any power of the army, any power of our intelligence, everything depends on God's blessing. And the reason why I'm thinking about this is because these attacks were such well-planned attacks happened, and somehow with the very, very sophisticated intelligence Israel have, and with the amazing military resources it has, it weren't able to prevent it. And I think it's a moment to think. It's a moment to consider, the best system is not flawless. The only one who really has a flawless system is Hashem. So it's something to think about, to strengthen our faith, our Emunah, but not just at the theoretical, okay, do you believe in God? Yes, I believe in God. It's an understanding that everything that happens in this world and anything you trust in, we all trust in so many things, It could be the army, but it could be so many other things, Sometimes a person has a very big trust in his, in his stability in life. I've got my job, I've got this, I've got that. Nothing bad can happen to me. But everything can be shattered just like this. We all experience this in a very true way during COVID. Everything we thought is normal life suddenly stopped. God can take it away in a second. So it's something to think about, not take things for granted. I remember there was a story they told us in yeshiva that a true story, that there was a community where a lot of people came on Yom Kippur who don't come the rest of the year, not particularly religious. They would come to the synagogue in big on Yom Kippur. And there was one of these people who you never see the rest of the year. And he comes to synagogue and he prays and he prays and he prays, crying from the depth of his heart. And the rabbi is quite curious because, he never sees this man the rest of the year. He thinks to himself, well, what is he praying for? So he goes and asks him, what are you praying for? Is there something I can help you with? And he said, I've got a beautiful life, wife, children, steady job. Everything in my life is perfect. I just pray to God, please don't mix in, don't mess it up for me. So it sounds a bit funny, but it's a mistake we often make. We think we've arrived at a certain level, and that's it, we're fine. But the truth is, every moment we're being blessed. Every morning when we wake up is a miracle. There's so many people who get horrible illnesses. So many things could be wrong and are wrong today in the world. We should be grateful for everything we have. That's one of the most amazing things about being Jewish. You open your siddur, the first things in the morning are blessings for such simple things. I have shoes, I have clothes. I can see, I can walk. These are not things to be taken for granted. So this was another angle, I thought, being grateful, realizing that God is in charge, not relying on our own strength. And I think this is something we actually see happening a lot. I've heard that many people in Israel and in other places as well have really strengthened themselves in many Jewish things, many Jewish matters. Prayer, people who don't regularly pray, want to pray or to do mitzvot. I think it has been and it should be a wake-up call for many people. One last angle, I want to look, taking you on a little trip on different parts of the Torah, middle and end, and now go back towards the beginning. Just talked about Moshe's death. I want to take a piece from Moshe's younger years in the Shemot, in Exodus. When Moshe was still a young man in Egypt, growing up as some sort of prince. And after, there's a dramatic moment, which, either you know it from the Torah, or maybe you've seen it in some movies, but, Moses sees a Jew being beaten, and he comes to the rescue, and he kills the Egyptian. Now, the next story doesn't usually make it to the movies, but I think is extremely important. It's 2 verses in the Torah. Vayetze b'yom hasheni, the next day after he had killed the Egyptian, he found 2 Hebrews fighting, 2 Jews fighting with each other. So he said to the offender, "Why do you strike your fellow?" Moshe is talking to another Jew. Why are you Jews fighting with each other? He retorted, "Who made you chief and ruler over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses was frightened and thought, then the matter is known. So what happened here? A fight between 2 Jews. Moses intervenes, and one Jew says, you think you're our boss? What are you going to do? You're going to kill me? Moshe is scared, and he says the matter is known. Now, what matter does he mean? If I would read this simply, I would say that Moses gets scared because now I know, wow, even these Jews, they know that I killed the Egyptian. Now everybody's going to know that I killed the Egyptian. Now I have to run away. And that's what happens next. Pharaoh tries to kill Moses. But Rashi brings another explanation. Very interesting explanation. He felt distressed because he saw there were wicked men among the Israelites, common informers. Since it's not so perhaps they are not worthy to be delivered from bondage. A completely different, more deeper midrashic explanation. It's not the simple meaning of the verse, but he's starting to say, hey, now I understand. I had a question. What have the Jews done? Why are the Jews still in bondage? They're praying to God, get us out. And God hasn't heard them. And he starts to think, what could that be? But then he sees this fight, he sees this argument, he sees this very negative response to him. He hears him even alluding to the story earlier. We actually saved the Jew's life. And Moses is saying, now I have an explanation. I can see there are problems inside the Jewish people. Now I understand the slavery better. And I think it's something that's repeated itself again and again in our history, is when we've had divisions, very soon afterwards, we have been attacked from the outside. We have it here in the beginning of the Jewish people's history in Egypt. We had it, of course, in the story of the Second Temple. In the Talmud said that the Second Temple was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam, because of hatred between Jews. And it's heartrending to say it, but the fact is, during the last 10 months, there has been so much division in Israel and so much arguing, and I don't even know the politics. I don't even understand it so well, whether it was because of the judicial reform or whether there were other things involved, but there was terrible language being used between Jew and Jew for a long time at a scale that we haven't seen before. And it's very easy pit to fall into when you're Jewish, because Judaism appreciates the tradition of debate, of arguing, of discussing. It's part of our religion, part of our tradition. You are allowed to have a different opinion. You're meant to express your different opinion. But at the same time, if it stops being about opinions and starts being about people and accusing people and attacking people, whether it's verbally or physically, then it's a very, very serious sin. And it takes away the Shekhinah, it takes away God's protection from our nation. So it's something to be aware of. And it was actually quite interesting. I remember when I was just after this war started, I was looking at the news. One of the first things was that some demonstration was meant to take place just then, or the day of the attacks, the day after, and they canceled the demonstration. Now it's time to show unity. And it's an amazing thing. It's a really, really good thing. But we shouldn't wait for there to be something horrible to happen. Feel the unity, to feel the connection, and to when we do have to have disagreements, we can find other methods to express our disagreements than anger, than hatred, than aggressive speech. So I think these are ideas that can give us strength, can give us a feeling that we're doing something. I think a lot of us, especially in diaspora, feel perhaps that, we're not doing physically. The soldiers in Israel, they're fighting the war. But the fact is, everybody can at their level do something to bring the Shekhinah into this world, to bring protection to Jewish people, and to rebuild, to repair the mistakes or the holes, the breaches that are inside our people. So I think here are some powerful ideas we can all take from: strengthening our belief in Hashem, strengthening our trust in Hashem, repairing the bond between each other. And I think if you want to add a third one, I don't think it's a coincidence that all of this happened on a very holy day of Shabbat and of Simchat Torah, of a Chag as well. Shabbat, I know in Israel Shabbat is a big cause of controversy, because the more religious there shouldn't be buses on Shabbat, or there shouldn't be this on Shabbat. The non-religious feel that you're limiting our freedom. But I think besides all these arguments, every Jew should feel that we have something amazing, something called Shabbat. And some people might not feel they're on the level to keep Shabbat 100%. But the idea that you can separate from the problems of this world and sanctify your day, it's an amazing gift, and we should cherish that present, cherish that gift, especially now when we're bombarded with news from all sorts of things and also the anguish. I think I can see in myself, I'm looking forward to Shabbat more than before, because you want that day. You want the day when you can just cut off and separate from those problems and find peace for yourself, peace for your family, peace for your community. And we should all pray that we should soon see the Yom Shekulo Shabbat, when that peace and that tranquility will come to the world at large. So these were just some ideas. I'm very happy to hear questions, discussions, comments. I'm sure all of you have what to say. Thank you.
Shmuel, just before we let, I think it's fantastic if we just have room to share. One thing in the last point that you made that for me was new, because I used to think of this idea of having disagreement and fighting like Sinat Chinam, like you mentioned, during the second Beit HaMikdash. So it was like a punishment that we were destroyed. But now I realized, or more than ever, just a few months ago, something happened. The commander-in-chief of the IDF walked into the Knesset one day, and he stopped the Knesset, in middle of the debate that they were having. And he says, I am doing something that is not in the protocol, I'm not allowed, but I'm doing this anyway. I want you to know we're in a very dangerous situation because the division that we have now in Am Yisrael, our enemies will perceive this as a weakness. And I ask you, in the name of security, to find a way forward. And he was asked to leave the Knesset that very minute. No one listened to him. So in that sense, I'm not continuing the blame game and saying, I'm just saying, in a way, this idea of us not being one, our only existence as a people is when we are Am Echad, when we are one nation. And when we are no longer one nation, then we have no right, we have no way to exist. And the miracle of our existence is us being one. And the moment we split up, our enemies will see that, as we unfortunately saw in this case. So, reflecting on that, I said to myself, well, that was the case in the Second Temple as well. The Romans were sitting there outside of the walls of Jerusalem. And once they saw the division, and they saw that the rebels were fighting amongst themselves, they felt, well, this is the moment that we can go in. So, in that sense, it's not only a punishment, but actually a connection between when our enemies attack us, and they're very sensitive to how we are as a people, which is amazing. That how we are as a people reflects to the whole world. And you saw even before the tragedy, before October 7th, you saw that even the United States and Europe began getting involved in Israel because Israel is the stability of the world as we see right now. So for me, at least, that was just a big emphasis to realize further, like what you're saying, that it's actually our enemies detect and our friends detect if we are Am Echad, if we are one nation, or if we are splitting up. So thank you for. I just wanted to add that reflection. And as I said at the beginning, right now, Baruch Hashem. I mean, the positive thing is that we really are Am Echad. That you have this very, very strong feeling. People just um, opening their homes. I just heard on the radio now that they actually have a matching. They said any family just call us up and tell us your needs, and we're going to match you a family who's looking for someone to host. Amazing things that are happening in Israel right now that hopefully will give you some hope and positivity of the beauty of the things. And one more note that you mentioned in terms of the news, I think it's a blessing if we have maybe an hour of Shabbat during the week as well, not to allow ourselves not to get there's you can watch beautiful stories, you can watch positive things, but just to drown in the anguish of the sad stories, um, we have to be strong, and it's good, I think, maybe to have a little bit of a break ourselves, once a day at least, to allow ourselves that. So just that was a few comments, and I think it's an opportunity for those of us, who would like, if anyone would like to share or comment or any questions further on the situation that we're in. Rav Shmuel and I were you're very welcome to share or to ask. If you have something beautiful you want to share, how did you get through these difficult days? Something that helped you get through the days. Um, I'd love to hear it myself, and I'm sure the others as well. What are your feelings out there? How is it for you? Or something beautiful? Thank you, Kuka, please.
Yeah, so this isn't like a long thing, but I just wanted to talk about something that I read a while ago, a couple of months ago. So this was a article, and it was specifically about how to like improve Emunah, and how to like a very simple thing, and something that someone else had like given like advice, which was like a very like a very, very simple thing, which is just to eat a small piece of chocolate every morning and say the shahakol, because you cannot say it without actually eating something. So a chocolate, it's very good tasting, and then it's also like a really small thing to just do in the morning.
Fantastic. Also, the bracha, just to add to what you're saying, Shahakol, we actually say that all is made in his words, which is exactly what Rav Shmuel was saying, to remind ourselves in the Emunah. So it's great to do that over chocolate. You can do it over a cup of water, but if you're already reminding yourself that all is good and that Hashem takes care of us, then I think you deserve a piece of chocolate. So, thank you so much. It's really nice, that if anyone would like to just add even small thoughts, I'm sure it's very strengthening for everyone. Who else wants to step in here? Don't be afraid of us. Cecilia, I'm going to call on you. I want to hear something from.
Yes, I'm thinking
Thank
here. You. I was so sad, and some of my spirit lost. But when I heard about what is happening in Israel, all together, all are working together, giving each other support with food and flowers and helping each other. It was wonderful. It was a miracle in a way for me. I had never seen it before, but now I see it and realize how this will unite the whole country to be Am Echad. And this gives me a lot of energy and a hope for the future, really.
Thank you so much. I think just to add like something, you can't you can't really. I mean, it's being afar. You can't imagine what it is just to walk down the street in Jerusalem today. It's really this feeling. I have a friend who's a musician, and he's going from base to base, from hotel to hotel, where all the evacuated people are, and just singing. And he says, I go there and I think I'm going to make them happy. And I come back with so much strength that they are giving me, that we are all together. And it's really a very, very strong feeling. And psychologists and therapists that are volunteering down at the hotels where, the people from Kfar Aza and Be'eri and all of the kibbutzim, they're now in hotels, and you just have psychologists and therapists and people coming with flowers and food. It's really an amazing feeling. So I think it's hopeful for everyone. So thank you, Cecilia.
I would like to add, when you're living
Yes.
in diaspora, it's a confusing thing. We are thinking of the whole Israel, and I think there's a lot of things we should like to do, but it's very, very difficult just to sit here and listen to everything. So when we hear news from Israel that are positive, is the best, but it is not always positive.
No, it is not all positive, and we try to be strong in what is not positive as well, and know that we have each other's back because we really need it. Miachai, I'm going to try to unmute you because you had something to say. It's not working. So Shmuel, can you see the chat? Maybe you want to read and comment.
Yes. So yeah, saying here that experience hate, anti-Semitism, praying together, adding to each other's kavanah when praying, and being together really benefited me. And then you speak about shutting down and the social media and disconnecting. Yeah, I think this is something that's also been a wake-up call. I mean, thank you for your words. I think the anti-Semitism has been a big wake-up call for many people. Like the understanding that we're vulnerable everywhere. But I also have a bit of a feeling, just came to my mind now that when you mentioned the diaspora and the anti-Semitism here, that there's a story in the Tanakh, in the Bible, about the prophets of the Baal and the prophets and Eliyahu, and he was the prophet of God, and like this sort of competition, who can bring the fire down from heaven. It's a famous story, you can read it in the Book of Kings, and eventually, of course, prophets of Baal cannot bring it, Eliyahu Navi can bring it, and people say Hashem is God. But there's a famous sentence that Prophet Eliyahu says, people like, choose your side. How long can you skip on different sides? If you really believe this Baal, this idol is the God, follow it. And if you believe that Hashem is God, follow him. And I have a feeling there's been a bit of a moment of truth for a lot of people, because not everybody around us is anti-Semitic, thank God. But because all the confusion and everything that's been going on, and all the misinformation over decades, there's been a lot of normal people who understand things wrong because that's what they've been fed. And to me, it's been actually quite a strengthening thing to see that after these horrible attacks, you really get the feeling that people are deciding their camp. People who are really anti-Semitic will always be anti-Semitic. There isn't much we can do about that. But a lot of people have woken up, hey, okay, these people are real terrorists. These people are real criminals. And at least here we feel that there's been a change, there's been a shift. A lot of people have seen Israel's point, have seen that the Jews are suffering. I think it's been a wake-up call for a lot of people who have been sort of in the middle. And I think we're coming to a stage where it's starting to see, anti-Semitism feels more like unmasked and more revealed, and maybe in that sense, that's also, I think, a form of light to clarify what's really going on in society around us. It's another thought.
Yeah, maybe Rav Shmuel, to bring in something a bit more complex. The situation in which you are, when one becomes afraid, many times brings out different emotions, and among the emotions that we have, we can also find racism. And unfortunately, in Israel, I've been seeing there's really a lot because of the fear and also lack of understanding and what happened. Suddenly, there's been a call saying that every Arab is an enemy and that we must kill them all before they kill us. And it's been very disturbing, I think, to see this trend. On the positive side, I just saw today that one of the Knesset members who is in charge of, I don't remember exactly his department, but it has to do, I think, with social welfare. And so he's from the very right wing. And today he came out with a statement saying that he will give millions of shekel to all of the Arab councils. In other words, you have the Arab cities within Israel, and he has said that this has brought forth such a feeling of togetherness with the Israeli Arabs, and that everyone, in a sense, they feel apart, or as you're saying of Shmuel, I think they have to choose sides. And for them, seeing the barbaric acts that were done and abused the name of Islam, that they don't believe in any sense, really strongly, you've seen this notion of gratefully, this notion of saying we are, what can we do to help? And many of them are volunteering, and I saw another beautiful thing from the mayor of one of the biggest mixed cities in Lod, not far from the airport. And he wrote, he's from Likud, he's from the Bibi camp, and he wrote on his Facebook, he wrote next time you walk down the stairwell and meet your Arab neighbor and think whether this person is a terrorist, why don't you think of their son or their daughter who's the doctor in the hospital that treats you? So in that sense, there is this racism, I think, that is coming forward, but it's also some other side, which is understanding the complexity. I was on a plane last week, and I was sitting next to an Israeli Arab, and he was looking at me very uncomfortably. And I just broke the ice, and I said, "Where are you from?" And he said where he was from, and he said from Baka El Garbia, from an Arab village, and then immediately fixed it, and he says, no, from Kiryat Ono. In other words, he was, even where he came from became something that he couldn't say out loud next to me. He was afraid, and I broke the ice, and and we started talking about what was done and whether it could be done in the name of Islam. And I started quoting him passages from the Quran and from Muhammad. And he says to me, he says to me, I think you know more about Islam than I know. I'm just a secular Muslim. So in that sense, it's very important also not to let our fear overtake us and bring out bad trends. And also, I think that watching too much and watching horrific scenes and bad scenes also can bring out very bad elements of our soul and destroy our souls. So we should be extra careful, as we mentioned, as we spoke about last week as well. Anyone have any last comment? You're very welcome. I think it's very good to share. Okay, well, it's been fantastic, Rav Shmuel. Thank you so much for bringing us through these different parts of the Torah, which give the different perspectives that you wanted to bring forth. It's been very enlightening and helpful. And any Torah that we learn, we know that remember that the source of the word Torah comes from or, from light. So if you're feeling a bit in despair from the news that we hear, which is terrible, then just open up the Torah or something and learn, and you will fill up your soul with light. So thank you, Rav Shmuel, for giving us your wisdom and your thoughts and bringing us through these different aspects of dealing with Emunah in these times. And thank you, all of you, for joining us today. And you're very welcome next week at the same time. And we hope for only good news, Be'ezrat Hashem, miracles, small miracles, big miracles, and Achdut of Am Yisrael, which will hopefully bring us back together to better times. So Laila Tov, thank you all. Litaot.
Thank you, Laila Tov.
Laila Tov.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.